CBS 21 News presents Face the State, COVID-19.
Good morning and thank you for joining us for this special live edition of Face the State. I'm Rob Hanrahan. Here at CBS 21, we are working to make sure you stay safe and informed during the coronavirus pandemic. So over the next half hour, we'll be speaking with PA newsmakers about how the state is responding to the virus. But first, let's take a look back at what's been a very busy week.
This virus is deadly, and we need to practice social distancing to minimize its spread.
Cases of the coronavirus spiking in Pennsylvania and around the country. As of yesterday, 371 positive cases have been confirmed in the state, with 2 deaths, with more than 25,000 cases being reported across the nation.
I cannot allow these surging numbers to overwhelm our people, our healthcare workers, and our hospitals.
Many Pennsylvania streets are empty, schools, bars, and businesses being ordered to shut down across the state last week. Starting tomorrow, Governor Wolf says state police will begin enforcing the order. We speak with Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman about Pennsylvania's response.
Americans need cash now, and the president wants to get cash now.
On Capitol Hill, negotiations continue on a massive stimulus package, the goal to have something done by the end of the week. The measure sending money directly to the American people and helping businesses. Those businesses needing the help after the Dow has its worst week since 2008. We speak with State Senator Scott Martin about the measures being taken in Harrisburg to help. And Cumberland County, the county hit hardest by the coronavirus here in central PA. It's one of many where disaster declarations are in effect right now. Our final guest, Vice Chair of the County Commissioners, Gene Foschi, with their plans to fight back. And we get right to our first guest, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, who joins us over the phone from Western Pennsylvania. Good morning, Lieutenant Governor. How are you and the family holding up?
We're good, and we wish everybody the same. We're all in this together.
You know, enforcement has been postponed, enforcement of the governor's plan to close businesses that are not so-called life-sustaining. Why did that happen over the weekend, and where does it stand now, and what are you expecting tomorrow?
That list was always a work in progress. It was always fluid, and unprecedented times have required these kind of unprecedented actions, and calibrating it so it makes the most sense. The governor and Dr. Levine are doing everything that they believe they need to do what's best for our Pennsylvania family here. And we would just ask everybody to realize that whatever's been decided, whatever the direction that we're continuing to take, is to make sure that we minimize the loss of life and minimize the amount of economic damage that's going to result.
And Lieutenant Governor, we both know that's so important, and that this is a very fluid situation. Many states, like Pennsylvania, taking the lead and deciding what they have to do to keep their populations safe. Pennsylvania involved, it appears, with many states up in the Northeast, including New York State. There has been some talk about a possible shelter-in-place scenario down the road. How do you feel about that? How does the administration feel about that? Is it a possibility?
Governor Wolf is looking to balance in the best possible way the livelihoods and lives, and the response is going to be what maximizes the welfare of both. Considering both, and there are options like shelter in place that are absolutely on the table, and it may or may not be implemented. But the bottom line is that Pennsylvanians need to realize that whatever steps are taken are done with that understanding that we're trying to balance the lives and livelihoods of every Pennsylvanian. And it's not a value statement on a business, whether it should close or not. It's just a reality of where we're at. And the solution right now is low tech, social distancing, and washing your hands, and staying home if you possibly can. Social distancing is as lethal to this virus as a Clorox wipe is. And that's what we got to practice. And the sacrifices that we're willing to make now will determine what the headlines look next week, 2 weeks from now. You mentioned last week it's been a busy week. Well, I mean, it's going to get even more busy this week and the following week. And, every Pennsylvanian's going to need to pitch in, and we've got to stick together. There's no other option. We have to stick together and remember the better angels of our natures, and we don't hoard. We must remain kind. We must honor the sacrifices that grocery workers and first responders and medical professionals are making and will have to make during this pandemic. And we need to all do our part throughout all of this.
Lieutenant Governor, I find it fascinating that we have to stick together in order to maintain distance right now. Because it just goes against, our natural reactions. We want to be with people and be together. There's talk on the federal level of possibly getting some money into people's pockets through this time, especially the hourly workers, people who depend on tips and things like that. Conversely, do you see the possibility, say we're in a situation where we'd like people to remain, sheltered in place or self-quarantine, things like that, they get a $1,000 check in their pocket, are they then going to run out and try to go to all the stores?
Yeah, well, again, people are undoubtedly going to need money in their pockets because everyone needs the basic services and products to get through this. And it's going to get worse until it gets better. And I just said it out on social media this morning. It's like, we have to say goodbye to normal for a season. I want everybody to grieve it and realize that life is not going to go back to, quote, normal anytime soon, but it will, and it can. And the simple things that we're willing to do today, tomorrow, and the next day are the path back, the way back. And the federal response is coming. That's going to be married to a state response. And in the meantime, it's the low-tech, common sense, but highly effective ways of staying apart together and being kind and washing your hands and realizing that we gotta stick together. It's not a choice. And if we forget our basic humanity and we forget the obligation that we have to each other to hold it together and to hold the line, then more is going to be lost than just where we're already at. And realize that there are no easy choices here. There are no perfect choices here. There are the ones that are going to be made to balance livelihoods with lives and the best path back to normal for everybody.
Speaking of our obligations as humans, scams are coming out of the woodwork right now. People charging $10 a roll for things like toilet paper. The Pennsylvania Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, fielded nearly 1,800 complaints of skyrocketing prices for staple goods, things that we all need, in a price gouging email address that he launched just on Monday. Again, you're asking people, if you have the means, that doesn't mean you go out and spend it all and buy every single roll of toilet paper or paper towel or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about expensive toilet paper. I'm concerned about hoarding. Hoarding harms everybody. You take what you need and you need what you take. And that's just part of that basic social contract that we have to enforce. I put out a picture on social media, this little lady who's hunched over and she looks like she's in her 80s. It's like, and there's bare shelves. It's like there are people that are extraordinarily vulnerable right now. And if you don't, everyone needs toilet paper. You don't need 40 rolls of it. Everybody needs meat. You don't need 15 pounds of it. You don't need 8 dozen eggs. You need 1 dozen eggs. We cannot hoard. And I call on every retailer to honor this kind of basic need. It's like no hoarding. That is fundamental right now, and that has to hold, because as this situation persists, we need to make sure there's enough for everybody, and that is fundamental. And also, it creates lines and backlogs in grocery stores, which facilitates the spread of the virus. It's like we need to become the 12 items or less lane nation right now. Take what you get and need what you get, and that's it, and let enough for the next person and the next person.
Our best to you and the administration. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, our leadoff guest on this live edition of Face the State on this Sunday morning. Face the State, COVID-19. The work is not stopping on Capitol Hill to help you find out to help you during this coronavirus outbreak. We're going to take a closer look at the $1 trillion stimulus package that would put money in your pocket, as we've just been talking with the Lieutenant Governor about. And state lawmakers are getting ready to go back into session. I speak with Senator Scott Martin about the legislature's plan to respond to COVID-19 when Face the State returns. Today on Capitol Hill, lawmakers will be going back to work on a stimulus package that could cost the country up to $2 trillion. The Senate expected to take action this afternoon with a procedural vote. Later this morning, the top 4 members of Congress will be meeting with Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin at the White House to finalize the language of those bills. The measure would send money directly to the American people of more than $1,000. It would also expand unemployment insurance and small business loans, among other things. But there are still some sticking points, including an emergency fund for states who are losing tax revenue.
We are all eager to come to a bipartisan agreement as soon as humanly possible.
United we stand, Mr. President, even if we have to stand 6 feet apart for a few weeks. And divided, we fall.
The goal is to have the stimulus bill passed and in the House, and the Senate by early next week. And this morning, we're asking how Pennsylvania state lawmakers are responding to the coronavirus. Tomorrow, the House and Senate will be holding remote sessions. I'm joined now by State Senator Scott Martin, who represents Lancaster County. Out early, Scott Martin, I'm glad you could join us live here on this live edition of Face the State.
Thanks for having me, Rob. It's great to be with you again.
I always love having you on the program. How do you feel about the work going on in Washington? We're going to get right to PA in a second, but I'm just wondering your thoughts on this third stimulus package.
Well, obviously the devil's always in the details, but the bottom line is there's going to have to be solutions in this uncharted territory that we haven't seen before. And so what comes out in order to re-spark our economy, which is really taking a hit right now, especially here in Pennsylvania, is going to be crucial to get families back on their feet, but also hopefully giving us support to all those frontline individuals to ensure that they have the supplies that they need, testing kits more and more coming online, those sort of things.
I want to compliment you for getting out early on the standardized testing issue. I have a young son in school. The question had come up around our dinner table, and I guess shortly after you started working on legislation, suddenly the state decided they were not going to hold those exams, and then the federal government also weighed in.
Yeah, I mean, that's critical. I mean, it's unforeseen at this moment as we see different things occurring in different states as to the future of the school year. But I know one thing's for sure. The ability to our teachers, even if we were to start up again before the end of the typical school year, there's no way they're going to be able to be prepared for these tests, the Keystone exams, the PSSAs. I have my own viewpoints on them long term as well. But at least from this standpoint, we don't need that weighted pressure on our education institutions.
And with all the financial pressure being on the adults, many are paying for college tuition right now, and their students, their kids, are either working from home right now or on extended spring breaks. A lot of parents worried about the money they have already paid for room and board and other fees.
Yeah, and that was a bill I introduced, and I got to be honest with you. My alma mater, Millersville University, was one of the first out of the gates. They just announced they're going to refund room and board, meal plans, travel-related services, things that the kids will not get back now that the schools were told that they cannot come back to campus. Now, a lot of them are moving to online, but for those things that were prepaid, it's the right thing to do, and I'm hopefully all private and public institutions follow Millersville's lead in making students whole, because quite frankly, that money will be desperately needed for life-sustaining activities right now, or to pay for their future education, especially since they didn't receive the services for it.
Senator, I believe when we last had you on this program, Face the State, we talked a little bit about the Pennsylvania primary, and back then the idea was try to move our primary up as much as possible to be closer to the Super Tuesday and those initial important races. Now there's talk about having to move, because of COVID-19, our primary back to sometime in June. How do you feel about that?
Listen, I absolutely think it's a conversation that we have to have. The word that I'm getting back is that we have facilities that were contracted to host polls and individuals who volunteer, which is a huge component of making elections work. A lot of them are older Pennsylvanians who have concerns about participating with exposure to everything that's going on. And if that's the case, we may not have any other choice but to move it. Listen, if we're going to run an election, the infrastructure's got to be there to make it work in every single precinct across Pennsylvania. So it might be prudent of us to have that conversation sooner rather than later when we go back this week to get the legislature to really examine about moving it, because quite frankly, it may be a broken infrastructure just based on the fear of what's going on and the people's ability to want to host it or participate in it.
I wanted to ask you one more question. Is there anything the local, our state, our General Assembly can do about getting some money into the hands of people who need it immediately?
Well, listen, it's a conversation we're going to have when we're going to go back. I know first and foremost, a huge concern of ours was the initial shutdown of businesses. We've been pushing and hearing from constituents. We've had so many individuals who are losing jobs because of the situation that's going on, and pushing back to ensure that we haven't overdone it. We have in some areas. To give you one huge example with construction, even with all the states that have shut down currently and have shelter in place, the construction is still an activity that's allowed to go on. So we got to continually work and communicate with the administration and push back where we think we may have gone a little bit overboard. But make no mistake about it, the legislature is committed to doing whatever we got to do to spark this economy, but also make sure that the tools are in place for individuals to fight back against the spread of the coronavirus.
Senator Scott Martin, please keep me informed on all this movement in our state assembly as we move through another consequential week here with COVID-19, so I can keep our viewers informed also. Really appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Rob, and be safe, everyone.
You too. Be healthy. One of the spots hit hardest by coronavirus in central PA is out in Cumberland County. Coming up, we're going to speak live with the Vice Chair of the Cumberland County Commissioners with the plans they're making to respond to COVID-19. You're watching Face the State. The number of coronavirus cases in PA continues to grow. According to the Department of Health, more than 370 positive cases have been reported, and that includes several right here in central Pennsylvania. There have been 2 deaths statewide, both on either end of the Commonwealth. There have been up to 11 in Cumberland County in the time since the cases have been announced. Geisinger has launched more testing ability, opening up a tent in Camp Hill along with other places in the region. I'm now joined by the Vice Chair of the Cumberland County Commissioners, Gene Foschi, to talk more about how the county is responding to coronavirus. And Gene, I'm glad you're with us here. Cumberland County has the most cases here in central PA. I want to make sure we bring that down to just our area here in central PA. How is that changing your response?
Well, good morning, Rob. Thank you for having me on your show this morning. One of the things that the 3 commissioners did together is that we have closed the county courthouse and all related county buildings to the public until further notice. And that was designed to protect not only the residents of Cumberland County, but to also protect our employees.
Do you have any thoughts on restrictions on regional or county travel?
Well, Rob, our job number 1 is to mitigate the spread of this virus. If we can stop the spread of this virus, we are going to be better off not only in the short term, but also in the long term. And if we get to that point, if our governor gets to that point, then we're going to go and abide by those rules.
Are you feeling you're getting enough help from the administration, enough communication?
We are getting a tremendous amount of communication, not only from the administration, but from our state House rep in Carlisle. She has been tremendously communicative and helpful.
You know, the Lieutenant Governor talked a lot about hoarding and other things. How is Cumberland County set up right now? How are you doing with food getting onto grocery store shelves, fuel getting to fuel stations that need it, crucial supplies getting through? I know that even, my local grocery store, basically almost everything's gone, and it's hard to figure out why. The stores are going to remain open.
The stores are open. In the grocery stores, it appears as if they will remain open. But I will tell you, Rob, I was in the Giants in Carlisle on Friday getting groceries for my family, and those shelves were bare. And hoarding is a huge problem right now. And that's something that our citizens can stop so that people all have an opportunity to get groceries, so that people all have an opportunity to get toilet paper, to make sure that they have food in their homes. It's very, very important that we don't have one household full of, 120 bottles of hand sanitizer and 120 households with none.
We're going to go back. We're going to have to go back to the barter system if we do that and trade things. But Jean, how are you and your family doing?
Well, we're good. So my children are, they have been home since last week. They did virtual school here at home. That is working very, very well. Now they're on their official scheduled spring break coming into the next week, but they will be home. My husband is doing very, very well. He is an attorney who has been working from home.
What do you think is the best way for all of us to get through this thing together?
Well, we all have to follow the guidelines from the White House, the governor, the CDC, and the Department of Health. And as we know, those guidelines say, stay at home, stay safe, wash your hands, cover your mouth when you sneeze with your elbow, stay within 6 feet of each other, stay away from each other, stay home, don't go out if you don't need to. Those are the most important things we can do, because the mitigation of the spread of this virus is critical to our success.
And I can add a little bit to that. College students and older teenagers, you are not immune. There are cases worldwide in that age group.
There absolutely are. And, on Friday, the governor said those people that are ages 20 to 40?
Right. 44.
Really are contracting this, 44, are contracting this virus at a rate that we didn't expect. And he believes it's because they're not really taking this seriously. So it is time to take it seriously for all of us.
It certainly is, for every single American. Jean Foschi is our vice chair of the Cumberland County Commission. Jean, thank you so much for joining us on this live edition of Face the State. We will be back with the final word. Stick around. Next is CBS News Sunday Morning, and this week on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan, the CEO of the American Hospital Association, the founder of FedEx, and the former director of the National Economic Council. Thank you so much for joining us this Sunday morning for this special live edition of Face the State. We will see you this time next week. Make sure you join us tonight for CBS 21 News. That starts at 6, and we'll leave you with this chance to just take a breath, look at the beauty of Central PA from Skyview 21. Stay healthy. I'll see you next week.